World War II, one of the most famous wars for its destruction of many cities and people. Famous for putting people and countries against one another. And one of the things it's most famous for? The Holocaust. But when you think about the Holocaust, what's the first thing that comes to mind? We think of the horrors of Auschwitz and what steps people took to help the victims of the Holocaust. But the world didn't know about the horrors of the Holocaust at first. During the years of World War II, there were many heroes who helped people find out about the horrors of the war. But there were many unsung heroes like Witold Pilecki. Witold Pilecki was an officer of an underground Polish movement who volunteered to go to the Auschwitz containment camp to gather and provide intel to the Allies and Polish government. Not many people can give up their family and friends and volunteer to go to a containment camp, especially the camp most well known for being the most brutal. So even though Witold Pilecki isn't necessarily a household name, he did such an incredibly honorable thing by volunteering to go to Auschwitz, and he helped show the world what was actually happening with the Holocaust. To elaborate, we interviewed two historians, one that specializes in the history of the Holocaust and Auschwitz, and one who specializes in Poland's role in World War II.
Before the Holocaust became common knowledge for all people within the Allies and even other countries, it was an unspoken truth. Most governments knew what was going on, but the media was heavily filtered and it wasn't public knowledge. But things got leaked. No one knew for sure what was actually going on within these rumored camps. And even when a rare escapee told their story, it was to a select group of people and was rarely believed. But with these leaks, rumors, and stories, resistances started popping up. Resistances to find out what was actually happening within these concentration camps.
One such resistance was the underground Polish resistance.
Overall, the underground resistance was the largest resistance of World War II, but there were different kinds of divisions. It was actually fairly unknown, but within each individual division, they fought intelligently and valiantly, the largest of which was Armia Krajowa, Home Army, AK, formed February of 1942. The AK was made up of these organizations created at earlier dates through 1940 and 1943. One such resistance was Tajna Armia Polska, or TAP, or TAP for short. This was founded on November 9, 1939 by two soldiers of the Polish army, Witold Pilecki and Jan Wojdarkiewicz. TAP was one of the more influential and daring underground organizations that had about 8,000 men at its peak and covered many major cities such as Warsaw, Siedlce, Radom, and Lubin in Poland. But one of the most important figures was Pilecki himself, since he wrote the first documented Allied intelligence report about Auschwitz.
Pilecki bravely volunteered to be part of an operation by the resistance to be imprisoned within Auschwitz to gather intelligence and escape. He was inside Auschwitz in 1941, and just a few months later, he had already formed an internal resistance force. He and a group of prisoners all managed to escape 2.5 years later in 1943. All the while, Pilecki wrote letters and poems to the AK about what actually went on within Auschwitz, and this was given to the Western Allies. This was the first documented intelligence about the concentration camps that the Allies gained. Pilecki wrote 3 different accounts about Auschwitz. He was there when Auschwitz was becoming the death camp it is known for, and was there when it was massacring people by hundreds.
Auschwitz was split up into 3 different camps: Auschwitz I, Auschwitz II, and Auschwitz III. Auschwitz I was the main camp and was made first, and was only used for prisoners of war, criminals, etc. It was mostly manual labor. Very few executions were documented, but they were probably executing them at this point too, by the hundreds. Auschwitz II was built in October 1941 and was the main part of Auschwitz. There were men's quarters and women's quarters, and this is where they started taking Jewish families and other minorities into camps as forced laborers and started killing. This is where the gas chambers and ovens were created and started to become used. And there is Auschwitz III, built in 1942. This is basically a factory that they made the prisoners work at, making rubber. Prisoners were usually a part of all these 3, especially if they lived that long inside Auschwitz's barbed fences.
Pilecki was there to experience the rise of all 3 camps. He saw the ovens be built and the masses of people put into the camp, as well as the mass murders happen. He witnessed the horrors of Auschwitz and even experienced some, but the resistance he organized within had continued to grow, and eventually he escaped.
Once Pilecki managed to escape, but all the Allies had received information. He was recognized as a war hero. He had volunteered to go to the most famous concentration camp of World War II, and had actually managed to survive and escape. But of course, Auschwitz has taken a toll on Pilecki. When Pilecki volunteered to go, he had left his family behind. So, when he returned in 1945 after being liberated on July 9th the same year, sure, it was a pleasant reunion, but it wasn't perfect. His children were more grown up, and his wife had gone through troubling times too. And at the time, the war wasn't over yet. Pilecki continued to be a part of the Polish resistance until the war was over. At this time, the world knew about the Holocaust and about Auschwitz, the worst documented death camp. Pilecki most likely isn't a common name among people nowadays because the Soviet-backed Polish Committee of National Liberation were arguing. And in September 1945, Pilecki received orders to go undercover into Poland and gather intelligence that would be sent to the government in exile. In 1946, the government in exile decided it was basically useless, that the liberation of Poland from communist ideals wouldn't happen. So they said that all the active members of the Polish resistance should either retreat west or go back to normal civilian lives. Pilecki declined and actually stayed gathering intelligence, but in July 1946, his cover was blown and he was informed that he had to leave. Again, he stayed, and in April 1947, he began finding evidence of Soviet crimes in Poland. But because he didn't leave, he was arrested on May 8, 1947. He was charged of illegal border crossing, using forged documents, and not enlisting in the military, carrying illegal arms, spying out for the ideas of foreign imperialism, and planning to assassinate several important officials. He faced torture, trial, and execution. He was tortured before the trial and pleaded guilty to all charges except the assassinations and spying. On May 15, 1948, him and 3 other comrades were sentenced to death. 10 days later, on May 25th, they were executed. By this time, the Polish government was a communist government, and they sealed almost all documents related to Pilecki. But after the fall of communist Poland, they began to become unsealed, document by document, in the 80s. A lot are still sealed today. So Pilecki probably isn't well known because most documents related to him weren't public, at least not until communistic Poland fell.
Pilecki, despite not being a common name, was one of the most brave men in World War II. There are many brave men, but not many volunteered to face the horrors of Auschwitz firsthand. Pilecki loved his country and tried to do the right thing until the day he died. On the day of his death, he had told his wife, "I cannot live. They, the torturers, killed me." Because Auschwitz, compared to them, was just a trifle. He lost spirit but was able to die fulfilled, and his final words before his execution were, "Long live free Poland." He died for his country and fought the good fight within the Holocaust and saved thousands indirectly. That's taking a stand.